Reborn in 1978. The first thing I did was hide my college acceptance letter. All because in my previous life, my fiancé Diego lied to me about failing the college entrance exam. After the return of the educated youths to their hometowns, I couldn't go to college and marry Diego for the next few decades. I had to take care of his paralyzed mother and raise two troublesome sons. It was not until just before my death that I received a package from Camila, filled with various intimate photos of her and Diego, revealing that Diego had her attend college in my place. Now having a second chance, I made a fake acceptance letter and stuffed it into the envelope exactly as it was. I want to see if these two can still love each other passionately once they're behind bars. Chapter 1. Laura, are you listening to me? My mind went blank, and my body staggered involuntarily. My fiancé Diego quickly helped me to sit down on a chair. Comrade, it's common for women to have anemia during those days. I told you to rest at home. Why did you still go out? Looking at the young and handsome man in front of me, I was still a bit bewildered. I've already borrowed the bicycle. You rest here, and I'll go to the post office for you, Diego said with a gentle voice. The post office? My pupils dilated sharply, seeing the familiar brick house and the old perpetual calendar hanging on the wall. I rushed to the water tank until I saw my 18-year-old face reflected in the water. I finally realized it. I was reborn. Reborn in 1978, the second year after the National College Entrance Exam was reinstated. Laura, drink some hot water. I'll be right back. Seeing that I didn't respond, Diego turned to leave. I acted quickly and grabbed him. Diego looked at me, astonished. Laura, what's wrong? Seeing the scrutinizing look in his eyes, I calmed down, suppressing the hatred in my heart, and spoke to him as usual. Diego, I'm fine. I already got a leave note from the captain. You go ahead. I'll go to the post office myself. Looking at this man, who had been my childhood friend and grown up with me, I couldn't believe that he had done so much behind my back if I hadn't experienced it myself. Hearing that I wanted to go by myself, a flicker of panic crossed Diego's eyes. Laura, look at how weak you are. Staggering around, you can't even stand properly. Besides, it's over 20 kilometers to the town, and you can't ride a bike. Are you planning to walk there by force? It was the same in my previous life. Under the guise of considering my well-being, Diego insisted on going to the post office to pick up the mail for me. Back then, I thought about how long we had known each other, and since we were dating, I agreed without hesitation. Now, seeing Diego's calculating gaze, I felt disgusted, but outwardly, I kept my composure and began to blabber convincingly. Diego, I've already spoken to Big Bull at the village head. He's going to town today, and I can ride his tractor there. After saying this, I put on my coat and was about to rush out. However, Diego blocked my path. Laura, what's going on? Why are you being so distant with me? In my previous life, Diego returned disheartened, telling me that both he and I had failed the college entrance exam. Although I was sad, I never thought to verify the truth. And Diego, seeing me upset, comforted me. Laura, even though you didn't get admitted, I will still marry you because in my heart, you won't be defined by an acceptance letter. Back then, I was touched to have met such a good man like Diego. Little did I know, he was being duplicitous, actually hiding my acceptance letter to let his mistress take my place. Unaware of the truth, I was overjoyed to marry him. After the marriage, I tirelessly took care of his paralyzed mother, and once we had children, I had no time to retake the college entrance exam. As for Diego, the first year after the educated youths returned home, which was also our first year of marriage, he got into college easily since he didn't have to do any household chores. Since then, we began a 3-year period of separation, and upon his graduation from university, he was assigned to work in the city. I requested countless times to follow him, but he always used the excuse that his elderly mother couldn't bear to leave her hometown, asking me to be understanding of the old lady. It wasn't until just before my death, when I saw the travel photos sent by his mistress from different years and the yellowed admission letter, that I realized he had been leading a joyous life with someone else while I, abandoning my dreams, slaved away caring for his family. I regret it. I regret marrying Diego early on because of his sweet talk. Even more, I regret living my whole life for others. Fortunately, I have been reborn now. Diego and I aren't married yet. I don't need to take care of his demanding paralyzed mother, nor do I have to worry about two thankless sons. Thank goodness. It's not too late. So this time, if Diego thinks he can stop me, he's dreaming. Chapter 2. I suddenly pushed Diego away. He was unprepared and stumbled from my push, frowning and scolding me. Laura, why are you so rude? Before, Diego had taken advantage of my soft-heartedness, and just a frown from him would make me obediently bow my head and admit fault. Now, I was no longer indulging him. I pointed to the other educated youths at the door. Everyone in our team has tasks to complete. I finished mine yesterday to take a day off. If you don't work today, you won't get your share of the food. Previously, Diego used the excuse of preparing for college entrance exams to take several leaves from the team. If it weren't for me providing him with food, he would have been starving. I later found out that his so-called exam preparation was to meet Camila at the cultural troupe. Knowing I wouldn't let him starve, Diego acted without any scruples. Diego is a chauvinist. Now, being mocked in public for being a kept man, he couldn't hold it together. Laura, what are you so proud of? Acting like you really could get into university. I tried to help you nicely, and you slapped me in the face, just like a dog biting Lu Dongbin without recognizing the good heart. He said. I ignored Diego completely. He continued to curse, but I quickly walked away. What I said about hitching a ride on a tractor was just a temporary lie. Although in my past life I really couldn't ride a bicycle. Now, having lived 50 years more, riding a bicycle was a piece of cake. While Diego wasn't looking, I grabbed a bicycle and pedaled hard, heading straight for the town. After getting the admission notice, I kept my wits about me and made a fake admission notice to stuff into the envelope. In my previous life, Diego claimed his charm made him indispensable to Camila at the cultural troupe. This time, I wanted to see if the two of them would still love each other to death if they ended up in prison. Back in my room, I took out the calendar and circled the 25th of this month. This was the day the educated youths would return home. In 5 days, we would leave this place. But while the rejected Diego would go back to his hometown, I would be heading to the capital to attend university. I had just marked everything when the door suddenly was knocked on loudly. Trouble. Something's happened. Laura, are you there? I opened the door to see an educated youth gasping for breath. Diego got into a fight with someone over something. You should come and persuade him. The villagers knew about my relationship with Diego, so they thought of me first when he got into trouble. When I arrived at the scene, Diego had already been pulled apart. Poor Diego. His head swollen from a blow, didn't care about himself but was comforting Camila, who was crying bitterly. Diego, caught off guard by my arrival, quickly distanced himself from Camila. The person Diego fought wasn't just anyone. It was one of Camila's suitors. And Diego had tried to play the hero. In my previous life, Diego never had the scene because he was getting the notice for me. Just now, seeing him protect Camila tenderly, I felt utterly indifferent. Back at my place, Diego thought I was silent because I was jealous and unhappy. He believed he had turned the situation around in his favor during the day. With a hint of triumph in his eyes, he tentatively said, Laura, I don't know that woman. Don't misunderstand. He had run to the cultural troupe countless times and still lied about not knowing her. But I didn't want to make things worse and just responded indifferently. Diego, relieved, quickly came over and grabbed my hand, asking, Laura, did you get the mail? Is it an admission notice? Did you get into university? I sighed deeply and started bluffing. Aw, the tractor broke down. Looks like you'll have to make another trip tomorrow. Hearing this, Diego was overjoyed. His eyebrows lifted, and he generously said, Laura, my dad got me a job at the supply and marketing co-op. Don't worry, whether you get into university or not, I will marry you. In my previous life, this statement led to my downfall. Now, I just found it ironic. The promises of marriage. If I got into university, Diego would trap me with marriage. If I didn't, I would end up supporting the family after our marriage while he enjoyed life with his mistress. Diego. Oh, Diego. You've really played your cards well. Unfortunately, this time, You're probably not going to get your way. Chapter 3. Just like in my previous life. When Diego came back from the town, he told me I hadn't passed the exam, and then offered some fake consoling words. I was heartbroken for a while, but soon recovered. In the following days, all the educated youths were preparing to return to their hometowns. I was no exception. The difference was that while others were preparing various local specialties for their parents, I turned the specialties issued by the team into cash, which would be useful for school. I thought, as in my previous life, that Diego, to avoid arousing my suspicions, would carry on an affair with Camila in secret, but perhaps because of a previous heroic rescue. On the last day before returning home, Camila insisted on following Diego. The two of them chatted and laughed like a couple deeply in love, and they bumped into me. Diego immediately stepped back and created distance from Camila. Laura, weren't you at the health team? Why are you back so early? Camila was just thanking me for saving her last time. Don't misunderstand. A flicker of jealousy passed through Camila's eyes, but she fearlessly stepped forward and affectionately grabbed my arm. Sis, you're leaving tomorrow. Can I stay for dinner to see you off? After saying this, Camila looked at Diego with those pleading big eyes. Diego rubbed his hands and looked at me awkwardly. I was hoping she and Diego would stir up some trouble, making the evening more interesting when my arranged meeting would take place. I nodded. Diego, who usually hated cooking, hummed a tune and took the initiative to cook. Camila smiled sweetly, making it seem to anyone unaware that she had deep affection for me. Once Diego left, Camila immediately dropped her smile. Inside the house, seeing the men's sweater I had knitted in my basket, Camila, wandering around, oops, splashed water on it. Sorry. Sis, I didn't do it on purpose. Seeing that I continued packing without looking up, she picked up a pair of scissors and shredded the shoe pads I had made for Diego. Sis, are these stitches wrong? Let me help you fix them. I watched her quietly. Camila, fair-skinned and well-figured. No wonder Diego was so enchanted by her. Camila didn't get the reaction she expected from me. Instead, feeling unnerved by my stare, she dropped her act and pushed all my neatly packed things to the ground. Crash! My neatly organized belongings were instantly scattered all over the floor. Camila, with a challenging face, said, Laura, Diego's dad is the village head. What right does a fatherless, yellow-faced woman like you have to monopolize him? Throughout the years when the educated youths were sent to the countryside, Diego always found excuses to skip work. I never imagined such a scoundrel was considered a treasure by someone. Thinking of this, I chuckled, perhaps thinking about taking my place in college. Camila wasn't annoyed. She arrogantly said, Laura, let me tell you, Diego likes me. If you don't believe it, why don't we put it to the test? Even if Camila gained fame and fortune in my previous life, how could someone as arrogant as her be content being a woman kept in the shadows? Just then, the door was suddenly flung open, and without thinking, Camila directed and performed a fall, landing on her bottom. Before falling, she didn't forget to glance at me smugly. Seeing my astonishment, she began her act contentedly. Diego, sis said I'm a vixen, and slandered me by saying I have something going on with you. Woo woo woo. I shouldn't have come to bother you. It's all my fault. Don't blame her. Camila wailed for a long time, but the person behind her remained silent. Camila, puzzled, couldn't help but stop crying and look back. At that glance, her face turned pale with fright. Just then, the person who came in had a dark expression and was glaring fiercely at her. Camila's longed for Diego, despite being visibly sweating profusely, was blocked outside by a tall, burly man. Camila's face turned ashen, and the tears she had barely squeezed out seemed ready to fall as she stammered. Secretary, why are you here? The village secretary snorted coldly. He didn't even look at the person on the ground but asked me directly. Laura, my wife sent me to collect some furniture, and now everything here has been wrecked. What do you think should be done? Camila, frightened, quickly stood up from the ground. Diego, still holding a spatula, hurried in to defend his mistress. Secretary, we're all leaving anyway. If it's broken, it's broken. Consider it a gift to Camila. Seeing that the village secretary was unresponsive, Diego awkwardly looked at me, hoping I would give him an out. Laura, You surely agree with what I'm saying, right? I did not give Diego any face. These items cost me 452 yuan when I bought them. I was planning to sell them to your aunt for 200 yuan. Since Camila has smashed them, she should compensate me with 200 yuan. Camila jumped up. You're extorting me. How can these things be worth 200 yuan? Indeed, they weren't worth that. But now I had the upper hand. I spread my hands, secretary. Since she doesn't accept it, I will report this to the team later and let them handle it. Camila trembled in fear, knowing that her reputation would be ruined once this was reported. Diego looked at me in disbelief. Laura, weren't you always the kindest? Are you really going to quibble over such a small amount of money now? Quibble? I directly pulled out the ledger and slapped it onto him. Diego, from needles and thread to the wardrobe, everything in here was bought with my savings. Now that Camila has smashed them, don't I deserve some sort of compensation? Moreover, you didn't pay a penny for any of these items. What right do you have to make decisions for me? Seeing my reasoned and well-argued response, and with the village secretary backing me up, Diego was choked up. He opened his mouth but couldn't muster a single rebuttal. Chapter 4. Camila had no money and could only look to Diego for help. For his mistress, Diego had no choice but to take out all his savings. Seeing the stack of bills he pushed towards me, I didn't hesitate and, after counting them once, I stuffed them into my pocket under Diego's regretful gaze. Everyone left. Diego knocked on my door. Laura, why do I feel like you've changed? As I cleaned up the mess Camila left behind. I played dumb, have I? I haven't noticed. Hearing my calm tone, Diego finally couldn't resist probing. Laura, we're going back to the village tomorrow. You still have your train ticket, right? Pretending to be concerned, I pulled out the ticket and deliberately waved it in front of him. Yes, it's here. Diego, are you going straight back to the village too? Diego saw that I was still under his control. His displeasure from earlier vanished. He sighed in relief, a smug look on his face. Of course I'm going back, but I'll make a stop in Beijing first. My uncle is ill, and my dad wants me to check on him. Beijing? Sure enough, in this life, Diego was still personally escorting Camila to college. Like in the previous life, I advised him to be careful on the road and to return soon. Diego, seeing that I still cared about him, left the house humming confidently. That night, I fondled the admission notice I had tucked into my chest, excited and unable to sleep for a long time. The next day, when returning to the village, I got off the train early. Then, as planned, I took another train to Beijing. Upon arriving in Beijing, I found a cheap hostel near the university and settled in. Everything was in place. All that was left was to wait for the enrollment day. As expected, on university enrollment day, I saw Diego and Camila together, inseparable. Diego, seeing me, bulged his eyes wider than eggs. How are you here? While he spoke, he tried to nervously pull me to the side. Without hesitation, I broke free from him and shouted, of course I came here to go to college. Diego, you said you were going to visit your uncle. How come you're here? My voice quickly drew the attention of those around us. Camila quickly stepped forward to cover up. He got accepted into college. It's perfectly normal for him to be here to enroll. Seeing the crowd gather, Camila nervously said, let's break it up. Friends. We are just old friends. Diego, seeing he couldn't move me, lowered his voice and urged me, you clearly didn't get into college. What are you doing here causing a scene? Do you know if you make a bad impression you might not even find a job back home? Seeing that classmates were curiously looking on, Diego quickly stuffed 100 yuan into my hand. Are you short on money? Take this. Buy some food, then hurry and buy a train ticket home. I found it ironic. This was the first time Diego was so generous with me since the last time he gave me 200 yuan. I fiercely threw the money to the ground. Without even glancing at him, I headed straight for the registration teacher. Seeing that I was impervious to his pleas, Diego angrily grabbed my arm. There's a limit to being unreasonable. I'm here on serious business. Diego's grip was strong, and I couldn't help but hiss in pain. Seeing me stop, Diego stared straight at me. Just go back now and I will forgive and forget everything. I keep my word. Go back and I'll marry you. I was almost amused by the absurdity. At this point, Diego was still using marriage as a threat, an eye for an eye. He was rough with me, and I wasn't going to be a pushover. The deception and betrayal from my previous life fueled my strength, and I swung my arm hard, delivering a sharp and resounding slap to Diego. Diego was stunned by the slap. "This comrade, why are you hitting someone? Is there no discipline here?" The registration teacher, attracted by the sound of the slap, approached with a stern face. Diego clutched my arm tightly, whispering threateningly, "Laura, don't think I don't know what you're up to. It's useless for you to be here without an admission letter. The school won't recognize you." After saying this, Diego immediately changed his tune, bowing apologetically to the approaching teacher. "I'm sorry, teacher. This is my fiancée Camila. We had a little misunderstanding. Sorry to cause such a scene." The teacher snorted coldly. I stepped hard on Diego's foot, and when he instinctively let go due to the pain, grimacing, I quickly ran behind the teacher and shouted with all my strength, "Teacher, these two stole my admission letter and are planning to take my place at the school. Are you going to do something about this?" My loud accusation made the teacher turn and notice the red marks on my arm, and his expression changed instantly. Diego, clearly seeing this too, looked ashen. Camila, however, jumped in, holding up her ID and admission letter. She brazenly claimed, "Teacher, she's lying. This person is just jealous that Diego and I are close, so she's sparing no effort to slander me." That explains why my ID had mysteriously disappeared. It turns out that even before the admission letters were issued, Diego had everything planned. He really is devious. Chapter 5. The teacher scrutinized Camila's identification closely, matching the photo with the person before him, then cross-referenced it with the admission list. "The identity information is correct. It is indeed Laura," he said, then looked at me. "Where is your identification?" I lowered my eyes. "I lost my documents. I'm still getting them replaced. Diego's father is the village chief, and to hinder my efforts to get my documentation, he has been delaying his approval." "Nonsense." The teacher's face immediately turned stern. "You must have both your identification and admission notice. Without identification, what enrollment are you talking about?" Seeing me at a disadvantage, Camila's expression turned smug. "Teacher, I told you she was an imposter. Here, this is my admission notice." Camila gloated triumphantly. Diego, who had been dispirited, perked up seeing the teacher did not believe me. He was no longer afraid of my shouting. After all, no matter how much I protested, no one would believe me. I was just helping someone who was being bullied. "Why are you so petty? If you keep distorting the truth, once you get back to the village, see which department will dare to keep you." Diego was hinting that if I didn't back down now, I would have no place in our village anymore. Seeing that I didn't retaliate, Diego thought he had me cornered. He wore a smug look on his face. He took a step forward and glanced at me again. "What are you waiting for? Come on, let's go back to the village." Just then, the teacher in charge interjected with a puzzled sound. "Student, this admission notice of yours is fake." With just that one sentence, Diego froze in place. Camila was completely baffled, which made sense. No one from her circle had ever gone to college. So naturally, she didn't know what an admission notice should look like. After being stunned for a moment, Diego stepped forward confidently. "Teacher, please take a closer look. This clearly has the school stamp." The person in charge pulled out another student's admission letter. "Look, our school's admission letters have a security feature, which yours lacks." Camila quickly stepped up next to Diego, both of them bending over to scrutinize the document closely. Just then, the sound of a police officer's inquiry rang out from behind. "Who called the police earlier, claiming there was a forgery and impersonation for school admission?" Under Diego and Camila's astonished gazes, I raised my hand high. "Officer, I was the one who called the police." After saying this, I took out the real admission letter, my household registration book, and the identity verification provided by the village secretary when I went to the countryside as a youth. Camila incredulously said, "Officer, don't believe her. I am the real Laura." The police officer and the school official exchanged glances. They instantly understood that this was a premeditated case of impersonation. By now, what was there that Diego didn't understand? He gave me a resentful look and viciously questioned me. Tell me, was this all your conspiracy? Conspiracy? It was he who harbored malicious intentions. And now, he had the audacity to act as if he was the one betrayed, shamelessly questioning me. Several police officers immediately approached, and seeing the situation escalate, Diego became completely panicked. While struggling, he shouted, "Leader, I was wrong. There's been some misunderstanding. I just want to talk to Laura alone." He was restrained by the police, only able to look at me pleadingly with his head bowed. As sweat beads rapidly dripped down his forehead, Camila couldn't stand to see her beloved distressed. She immediately rushed up to comfort him. "Diego, don't worry. Your father is the village chief. She can't possibly turn the sky upside down." Camila shouted the words village chief quite loudly, as if thinking that the title would intimidate others. Unfortunately, the village chief might be an autocrat within his domain, but outside, he holds no sway, especially here in the capital, where any minor official could easily dominate him. Diego, held firmly by the police, was so furious that he lashed out with a foot in disdain towards Camila. "Shut up already. An illiterate is always an illiterate, and you still can't see the situation we're in." After saying this, he looked at me with pleading eyes. "Laura, we've known each other for over 10 years. Can you give me just 2 minutes, please?" Diego started to cry desperately, a change from his earlier anger, his pale face now full of regret. He must have known that if this continued, his future would be utterly ruined. Seeing that I was willing to talk privately, hope ignited in Diego's eyes, his face nervously anxious, not knowing where to put his hands. "Laura," Diego pleaded, "this is my fault. I was deluded. I'm not human." Seeing my expression soften, Diego stammered, "If you forgive me, I'll give you 1,000 yuan as compensation when we get back, and you can go to university." I stared at him intently. Diego didn't receive my nod, anxiety causing his hair to stand on end. Chapter 6. His voice trembled. "Laura, we've been childhood sweethearts and a couple. How can you bear to ruin my future? If I go to prison, my life is over. I beg you." "Diego, you have the nerve to mention childhood sweethearts, to talk about a future?" I looked at him coldly. "Is your future a future, and mine is not? Don't you know that going to college can completely transform a person's life? Yet you betrayed me for Camila. You, who thinks with what's in your trousers, are a selfish and irresponsible man. How can you have the face to ask for my forgiveness? In my previous life, I took the kids to the capital to find Diego. The kids, who had never seen a woman as gentle and classy as Camila, tried to please her incessantly, calling her auntie repeatedly. Back at the guest house, they always compared me with Camila, saying I was uneducated and looked old, that I was far inferior to Auntie Camila. I thought Diego would keep the peace, but not only did he not discourage them, he even smiled and said that kids just speak their minds. I stayed at the guest house for 1 day before Diego rushed me to go back. "Laura, my mother's health is poor and she can't do without you. Here's your ticket. Take it." Poor me. Last time I slaved away for 50 years for such an unworthy man. I regret it. Now that I finally have the chance for revenge, I will not be lenient. I turned to the police officer. "I also want to officially report Diego's father, the village chief of XX village, because the fake ID for Camila was issued by him. Furthermore, the national college entrance exams were reopened to build a new socialist society and prepare for a better future for our country. Yet Diego and his accomplices exploited loopholes in the policy. Their thinking and methods are corrupt and opportunistic. Please deal with them severely and rid the nation of these pests." My voice was loud and righteous. Diego lost all hope, and frightened, he collapsed to the ground with a thud. The case was clear. Diego confessed to lighten his punishment. The day he and Camila were arrested, I registered at the school. After the dormitory was assigned, I used the 200 yuan I had saved to buy bedding and toiletries. Lying in bed, I couldn't fall asleep for a long time. In my previous life, I envied Diego, envied those who could go to college and change their destinies. Unfortunately, I married early, had children, and my energy was sapped by endless household chores. This time, finally, I could too. Attending university allowed me to acquire knowledge and see a broader world, experiencing different walks of life. Knowing how hard-won this opportunity was, I cherished it more than anyone else. Diving into the sea of knowledge with every moment I wasn't eating or sleeping, I thought my paths with Diego had permanently diverged. Unexpectedly, on the day I was named a model student by the university, I received a letter from him, from prison. He wrote that he deeply regretted being with Camila and that if it weren't for her, he and I would not have ended up like this. He also mentioned that he was working hard to reform himself in prison, realizing he wasn't worthy of me but still wanted to try. I found it laughable. Even without Camila, there would have been other women. Diego always blamed others. He never considered that he was the architect of his own misfortune. After graduating from university, the state assigned me a job. In my spare time, I continued to learn new things. The more I read, the more exhilarated I became, and I finally understood what it meant to truly swim in the ocean of knowledge. I saw Diego again 10 years later. At that time, my husband was driving me back to my hometown for a visit. The rare sight of a Santana pulling up at the village entrance immediately drew envious glances from the entire village, including Diego and Camila. By then, Diego's face was weather-beaten, and his hands were rough with calluses. His father had been dismissed from his position, and after Diego's stint in prison, he had completely lost his golden job at the supply and marketing cooperative. In a previous life, he had managed to balance working at the cooperative with studying for college entrance exams and successfully got into a university in the capital the following year. Now, with his misconduct stripping him of the chance to take the college entrance exams, he had no choice but to join his father in toiling the fields for a living. As for Camila, without a university education, she lacked the elegance and poise she once had. After being released from prison, her parents wouldn't let her return home. With her bad reputation and nowhere else to go, she ended up living with Diego by default. Thus, when I stepped out of the car, dressed in a stylish Western outfit and black long boots, Diego was stunned. Chapter 7. In my previous life, Diego mocked me as an ugly, illiterate woman. Now, seeing me standing next to my military officer husband, he didn't even have the courage to strike up a conversation. Camila glared at me with evident jealousy and satisfaction. She prided herself on being more attractive than me. But now, seeing the company each of us kept, she furiously berated Diego. How could I marry such a loser like you? I was destined to be an officer's wife. It's all your fault. All because you seduced me back then. Diego didn't put up with her, slapping her across the face. You've turned against me, daring to hit your own man. If it weren't for you, I could have married a college graduate. If you keep nagging like this, don't blame me for not being nice when we get home. My military officer husband asked. Do you know these two? They keep staring at you. I looked down at them with the same condescending expression they had once used on me. Ha, these two were the ones who tried to take my place at university. Hearing take my place at university, Diego couldn't even raise his head. I ignored him. I went with my husband to visit my parents. Unlike in my previous life, where I had two ungrateful sons, this time, heeding the national call, I had only one child. Everyone tells me that children are there to take care of you when you're old, but I value character more. I taught my daughter to be humble, caring, and most importantly, I told her that women must be independent and strong, never to be trapped by a man's sweet words into a life confined to domestic duties. Fortunately, my daughter is ambitious, and her life is more splendid than mine. Living again, I left the scoundrel and reclaimed everything that was mine. This time, my life is truly fulfilling.